Hello and welcome to another medicine show. I wanted to talk to you today about a very well-known and widely recognized medicinal herb, and that is the common dandelion. This, as you are probably well aware, is a dandelion. The leaves grow in an arrangement called a basal rosette, which is basically the leaves coming out in all directions from a central point, and the flowers grow up out of that central point. And each of these flowering heads consists of a whole bunch of little yellow things, and each one of these is a separate flower. Dandelions were known and loved as an edible and medicinal plant for many centuries before the rise of lawn culture and the marketing of herbicides made them into a weed in the popular consciousness. This is a page from John Gerard's Herbal, written in 1597, in which he describes dandelions and talks about their medicinal uses as a remedy for the kidneys, the liver, and the digestive system. The English name dandelion, by the way, is taken from the French name Dandelions, which means lion's tooth. The idea being that the leaves were shaped like a lion's tooth. Obviously, the people who gave it that name didn't really know what lion's teeth looked like, and they thought they might have been barbed, I suppose. Gerard's Herbal was popular for many generations and may have been read by the early English colonizers who brought dandelion over from Europe to North America intentionally as a medicinal plant. Many centuries before that, in the 10th and 11th century, Persian writers like Ibn Sina and Raziz wrote about Tarashakuk, which was their name for dandelion, and that name became the genus name Taraxacum when their writings were translated from their original languages into Latin. An interesting thing about the botany of dandelions is that while they're pollinated by many different insects, including honeybees, they are capable of reproducing without being pollinated. They can make seeds that are genetically identical to the parent plant and just spread those and basically clone themselves. No pollinator needed. One of the inspiring things about dandelions is they will grow just about anywhere. They're very adaptable and they just bloom wherever they plant themselves. This one is growing in a marsh. So the ground here is very wet, and that's not the ideal place for this plant to grow, but it will do it. It will grow just about any place. A more ideal habitat for dandelion would be a grassy lawn or an open field that hasn't been mowed or sprayed with herbicides. If you do gather your own dandelions, you want to make sure that you get them from places that haven't been poisoned and that aren't right next to a roadway. And while this eliminates a lot of the places that you'll see dandelions growing, it also leaves a lot of places open because they are very common. And when you do see dandelions growing in polluted areas, remember that part of what they do is to heal that pollution. They help to bioremediate the soil in polluted places, and in that way they're removing toxins from the environment the same way that they remove them from the human body. When I was learning about dandelion originally, growing up in eastern Kentucky, I learned that the leaves were for the kidneys and that the root was for the liver. Nowadays, in my modern clinical practice, I use it in a way that's a little bit more nuanced than that, but that's still the general idea. The leaves contain sour substances that can stimulate the kidneys. They also contain some bitter substances that stimulate the liver and the colon. The root especially contains a lot of the bitter substances that stimulate the liver. So The leaves are good for things where you want the kidneys to work more, and the root is better for things where you want the liver to work more, where you want more bile in the digestive system. They can help to promote digestion, promote bowel movements, and to decrease the absorption of substances that are processed by the liver. So some toxins and waste products and so forth can be filtered out through the liver, and other ones are filtered out through the kidneys. So dandelion helps with both of those things. This part of the dandelion is actually its fruit. Each of these little white things is carrying a seed, and it's well known for granting wishes when you blow away the seeds. So I always wish for more dandelions. In closing, I'd like to leave you with this recipe for dandelion wine, which is a medicinal beverage drunk to stimulate the appetite and improve digestion. It's used here in Kentucky and in many other places. When you pick the flowers, be sure to wash them because sometimes they have little bugs inside them and you want to rinse those out. So pour 1 gallon of boiling water over 1 gallon of dandelion flowers and allow that to infuse for 36 hours. Then strain the flowers out and add some yeast, a packet of brewer's yeast, to the liquid, and about 1 pound of sugar or syrup or honey or something to ferment, because the yeast is going to turn that into alcohol. If you want a non-alcoholic version of this, you can skip this step and just put the yeast in. It will ferment for about 12 to 24 hours, and then you want to keep it in the refrigerator because it will not be shelf stable. But that will make pretty much non-alcoholic version of the same beverage. So after you've mixed those in, pour it into a jug or a carboy with a stopper and a fermentation lock, which you can buy anywhere that sells homebrew supplies, and allow that to work for 2 weeks or until the bubbling stops. And then pour that into clean bottles and seal with corks, and you can drink this before meals. Thanks for watching this episode of The Medicine Show, and if you've enjoyed it, please follow, subscribe, and share and tell your friends. Thanks a lot.